I'm Indra,
And I'm Amanda.
and we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Indra?
I'm doing well, but I have to say something. Can I give you some feedback? I mean, I think there are a few words that I don't like hearing. Like, depending on the context, those words can just like be like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, yeah, that just like dampers your entire day because the immediate thought is like, oh, she's gonna tell me like this is gonna be negative feedback for
Always.
sure.
Every single time. And like, we're in a world that is so obsessed about giving and receiving feedback. Like, we even have a feedback form for our podcast. Like, but like, it's just wild. It's wild. So the doctor's office, you have to hit the buttons to see what kind of mood you're in and what it was like. The supermarket, like everybody, it feels like everybody's either giving you unsolicited feedback or asking for it. I mean,
Yeah, like
ridiculous.
anytime I do anything, I get a survey in my inbox. Like, how was your flight? How was your meal? How like how was this? How was that? How was your experience on our app? And it's just like I just opened it and like clicked a button. Like, what experience?
And so often, like, I just want to hit like, okay, I'm ready to give you my feedback. I go and I answer like 2, 3 questions. I think I'm done. And then I'm in this massive survey flow. I'm like, whoa, 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 abandoned survey. I can't
Oh, the
stand.
number of surveys I have abandoned because yeah, you're right. Like it starts off with a few like multiple choice questions and then it throws you into open-ended text boxes and they're all mandatory and I'm just like close window.
Close window. I mean, I think we've got some good things that we're going to talk about later about some of these, like, why are you make me do your job for you? Right. But like, before we get into our feelings about surveys, what I wanted to talk about was like like you and I think we've come up with like 2 things that really have led to the proliferation or it's like the root cause analysis of feedback fatigue. I think you got one, like you're like it's those keyboard warriors. I mean, that's one of them. I mean, I don't know, like everybody's got a darn keyboard. So
Yeah. It's the keyboard warriors. It's the keyboard warriors on the internet, right? Like
everywhere.
on social media. I think, social media has democratized feedback, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like anyone with a keyboard doesn't need to be invited to a formal feedback process, right? Or form, right? If you have an opinion, if you had a bad experience at whatever store, you can go, on their social media page and be like, hey, the cashier cussed me out today, right? Like do something about this.
Thought you would want to know. She cussed me out. She cussed out the 3 people behind me too. So it wasn't just me.
Right.
Thought you might want to know. Thanks.
Right. But I think the format of social media feedback invites and like encourages the quick takes, the not thinking about feedback before you fire something off. It's just like I had something bad happen to me, or I think something bad about you. And in addition, like the social media thing, because it's on the internet and the internet rewards attention, an easier way to gain attention is to bash someone, to badmouth someone, to have a hot take that's negative. And like you're not going to go viral if you give someone glowing feedback or something positive and sunshine and roses. Like that's not going to get
so
you
rare.
attention.
It happens every once in a while. Usually involves a puppy or a baby, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Usually, right. Puppies, babies, baby
Kittens,
animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the one thing that, as you're talking about, like it also, the way the platforms encourage us, ask us to whatever, engage, it's sort of, it's the cost of doing business. Like I'm a TikTok person, right? I've been for a few years now, just really obsessed with just like, I love it as a platform to learn so many different things about people that I just wouldn't encounter on an everyday basis. And there, everything is algorithm driven. So either A, you're trying to train your algorithm, or B, you see a video that you like, and you want to make sure that the people who have done the work to do the posting get rewarded. And some of that is based on, and they keep on changing their algorithm and their monetization and whatever. But like you want to add a comment because you want to reward the person. But then like that can lead, I mean, it's gone sideways in some cases, or somebody's like, I'm like, I was just trying to help them with their engagement numbers so they could get more money out of the creator fund.
Right. And that's what it is, right? Like we've built this system, like
Mhm.
the greater we've built this
The
system,
royal we, yes, we did.
right,
The American
based
royal
on
we.
right, the royal we built the system based on engagement.
Yeah.
And again, like anyone with a keyboard,
And they don't all
anyone with
think
a key
about it.
or a smartphone, right? Like a virtual keyboard on your phone.
100%. And they don't, and we don't always think about the consequences of the words that we're leaving. Like, and we also don't think about the context of the other people that might be ingesting those words, whether it's the original creator, original poster, or just the audience as a whole. It creates all sorts of problems. So like that's like root cause number one. And like it is, there's I think root cause number two that we came up with, which is interrelated, is all of these feedback platforms. There are the ability to elicit and collect feedback from people is so darn easy. Google Forms is free,
Yep.
right? Not the only free platform. It just happens to be the one that we're using for the pod. But like, can't believe I just said the pod, whatever. Anyway, but like all these forms, and I think that the ones that since this is our podcast is really focused more on the workplace, the ones that drive me the most crazy are actually, and let's be very, very clear. I have worked with some incredible HR team members. I've worked with some really incredible people team members, all the different functions within, but the systems that have been created to help HR function more effectively and try and ensure that all of their team members across the entire company are well supported, and all the people managers and leaders are doing a good job. Those systems are infuriating as a person. Like the intent of them is wonderful. The implementation in conceptually fantastic, but in practice it's exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting. I mean, I know you've got some stories, I've got some stories. I know that you've come across some juicy ones, so why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, not so much juicy, but I've worked at multiple organizations that have implemented this formal
Mm-hmm.
HR feedback management tool.
Yep.
And the reminders, email, Slack, every meeting, like the reminders to get to 100% engagement every day, multiple times a day. And they're because I'm human, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's always a part of me that's just like, if they remind me one more time, I'm just not gonna do it out of spite.
The engagement surveys. I totally forgot about this. I was at a workplace where the people leader, and I think it's probably in all my companies I work for, but like there's one in particular that stands out. All the people leaders were competing with each other to see who could get the most number of survey completions. And just to be very, very clear, for in most organizations, or at least the ones that I've been a part of, your engagement, your employee engagement score is exclusively based on whether or not you filled out that survey.
Yes.
which is
Yes.
which is like how I engage at work is how I talk to people every single day, and whether I give a hoot about them. Like to me, that's like the meaningful engagement. But the metric that, all the benchmarking studies, at least the most recent ones that I've worked with, is like how many people completed the survey. And so they would compete with each other. And the team that won got to wear jeans. This shows how long ago that was. You got to wear jeans to work.
Yeah. And it's not even at the workplace, right? Like I've applied to jobs
Mm,
and gotten an automated, sorry, we're moving forward with another candidate, whatever, the automated rejection email.
sure.
And a few days later, got a survey from a company I don't even work for
Have you
asking
even talked
how
to them? Have you even talked to them?
right. I didn't even talk to them. I didn't engage with them. But they sent me a survey asking how the recruitment process was. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So of course I ignored it, deleted. A few days later, they would send me a reminder email saying, "Hey, you didn't fill out this survey about our recruitment process." And I'm like, "What recruitment process? I didn't engage with anyone other than your automated, like sending my resume off into the ether." Um,
Wild.
yeah,
Completely. Like it's and like you're make the intent is good because they do want to make sure that, all candidates are having a good experience. And, the recruiting process is complex. There's lots of people involved. There's the training on how to engage as on the employee side is mixed, right? And candidates can also be mixed in all their different backgrounds. So like the intent to make sure that an experience is good for everyone and that people leave that process feeling good about the company is admirable. But like, why are you? I'm not on your payroll. Why are you hounding me to fill this thing out? And why is it so much darn work? Like, I don't get paid for this.
right. It's not just a, click a few buttons and it's off. It's
Yeah,
usually back to what we were talking about. It's usually a trap. Like it starts off with the few click a few buttons, and then it takes you into a mandatory open-ended text box, right? Where you have to like think about what the words that you want to say instead of just clicking a number from like 1 to 5. How happy were you?
right. And the thing is that not a lot of these forms are not anonymous. They're actually tied to you. And if they're not tied to you, like if the person can't figure it out, they usually have some open-ended field where the person interpreting this stuff is going to be trying to figure out who said what.
Oh, totally.
Leave me alone. I mean, I've learned how to write over the course of my career. I've learned how to write in a completely different tone of voice and everything for completing these surveys. Because, like, afterwards, actually, at that same workplace I was talking about earlier with the engagement scores, one of the people who was part of the action team who was reading the consolidated feedback, whenever she's like, I found yours. You said da 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 da. I'm like, nope, not me. Legitimately not me. Like, because I've learned this skill. Like, because it's why are you asking me for this? Because I know I'm going to get repercussions for it. But like beyond that, forget about the repercussions. I'm exhausted.
Right. It's
I'm
funny you say that
exhausted.
because I too have learned how to do that. Like I add some typos, some misspellings
Hmm?
in there.
Strip out all your favorite words. Like,
Yep.
I'm no, nope, not me, not me. Somebody else heard that from me, not me. I'm very, very careful. But like, and then the other thing that when these systems are being deployed, like so I was I'll tell you where I was. I was at WeWork. I was at WeWork and we had quarterly reviews. Every quarter, every employee, thousands of us would go through 360 reviews. And just for anyone who doesn't know what a 360 review is, it's where you elicit feedback from, like, I think we were saying 5 people. So you wanted to get feedback from 5 people to give you a well-rounded perspective. You wanted people who were your peers, you wanted people who were more senior than you were, and in some cases, you wanted people who were more junior than you are in the organization to get that 360-degree feedback. What happened was, like, we would spend at least a day. Like I still remember one day vividly, the first time that they did it. Like all of us were sitting on the 6th floor, which is where like the big lounge area, each of us with like a glass of beer, a glass of wine, something. I mean, not again, it was a particular workplace, and trying to crank through all of this feedback. Because like in certain roles, like the roles that you hold, like, or the roles that I hold, like you interact with lots of people, and people, when they like you, they ask you for their feedback. So it's all this time to get this, all this time to sift through it if you're a people manager trying to figure out what you're going to share with your employee as far as like their performance. And then it's all the hours that are spent after the person receives their feedback and them having to interpret it, react to it. And that's a whole nother episode. But like it's so time consuming. And I don't think that people always recognize the costs, the hidden costs. We're all on the hidden stuff lately, right? The hidden costs to the company of doing all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Like I, again, have worked at multiple workplaces where similar, might not have called it a formal 360 review, but like
Sure,
review time,
sure.
whether that's annual review or every six
Semi-annual or
months
whatever it is.
or,
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
quarter, like whatever. Um, you're asked to provide peer feedback.
Yes.
And you and I interact with a lot of people.
A lot.
And so a lot of people have asked me to write their peer review. And of course, I'm not going to be like, no, sorry, not today. But there was one time I had to write, I think, 6 peer
Mhm.
reviews. And each one took me at least an hour because I have to comb through, the projects we worked on together, the interactions that we've had. I've had to, recollect and collate that information
Yep.
and then put it in this, digestible format for this person or for HR.
Yeah.
And I worked at I worked somewhere where there was a character limit in the system or
Oh, oh,
like a
that's
word
the
limit
worst.
because they good intentions, right? Like
Yes, I can see that.
back to
Yeah.
what you said about, it takes time for a manager to comb through all this feedback and digest it and figure out what to share. They were thinking from a manager's perspective and thinking from a peer reviewer perspective as well, right? Like, oh, you only have to write 200 words. Like, not a big deal. Me, I find it harder to write something brief than to write lots of words.
I think there's that Churchill. I don't think I've ever found the actual original quote, but there's a quote that's attributed to Churchill where he's like, if you want me to talk and if there's no time limit, I can do it right now. If you want me and I've got 2 hours, I need a couple of hours of preparation. I'll be good on that one. Or like, but the shorter you go, he's like, if you want me to do it in 15 minutes, I need a week. I need 2 weeks
Right.
or whatever it is. Like it's true. Once you've gone through these processes, you're like, oh, I get it now. I get it.
Right.
Giving
Yeah.
somebody short thing is not easy.
It's
No.
not easy. And, a similar quote, I don't know who it's attributed to
Mhm.
either, but it's like, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
Exactly. 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 I mean, it's just so hard. And we're committed to not just complaining about things here, folks.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of laughing. I promise I'm going to edit my laughs so they're not quite so loud so nobody gets their ears blown out. But I'm a boomer of a laugher. Or my laugh booms. Boomer doesn't. But anyway, it's
Yeah.
different
I
word.
was like, you
Different
said
word, different
boomer. No,
intention.
that's not what you meant, Indra.
No, my laugh booms. But we want to give people solutions. So I think that, there are a few different things depending on where you are. The first one that comes to mind for me, like I started at an organization, really large corporation, was supporting a rather large team. They hadn't had anyone in an ops role, or they had a very small ops team. And so the backlog of things that needed to be cared for was pretty darn big. Backlog is a list of things to be done, folks. And so every single time I would see someone, somebody would say, can you do this thing? I'm like, okay. Like I created a spreadsheet because that's what worked for in that scenario. But like a feedback form goes a really long way, or like a spreadsheet where they can dump their thing and see it. Why I love a spreadsheet is because when you put it in a spreadsheet that people can see it, they can see how many other things you're dealing with. Because somebody was complaining about a particular door, like wouldn't that door be great if it had a window in it? So that we could see when it opens so that you wouldn't accidentally open it onto someone. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, I totally agree with you. Wonderful thing. I've got these 4 other things that have to do with facilities. I gave them, I'm like, these feel like they're more important. Are they? And they're like, yes, those are so much more important. I'm like, great, fantastic. So it took the feedback. It wasn't about me. It was about what I should do. Right. Put it in a form. I love a good form. I love a good spreadsheet. So that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you touch on something really important about collecting feedback and these feedback forms, the feedback culture.
Mhm.
And it's doing something with that feedback,
Mhm.
like showing what that feedback is and committing to acting on that feedback. Um, I've worked at organizations where, they ask you to do the engagement survey, the feedback survey, the this, that, or the other survey, and nothing gets done with that feedback.
Why did I
It
spend
just
my
go
time?
Right. It
Yeah.
just goes into a black hole and nothing changes.
100%. I mean, which makes that scenario of a prospective employer asking you for feedback that you'll never know if they ever implemented that.
Right.
And so that's one of my favorite tools. So, and a really good call out on if you're the person collecting feedback, tell people what you're doing with it. Even if, and if you collect it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much, tell them it's too much. I didn't, I requested it in good faith. I thought it would take me X. It would take me Y. And I've got these 10 other things to do. So I, I heard it. I have it. I will do something. I can't do it right now.
Right.
That's a perfect out on that one. And perfectly legit. I'm like, oh, been there, done that. Sure. I've had scenarios like that. I get it. I get it. You can't deal with it right now, but I'm glad that it's still valuable and you'll get to it at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
I also like Google Forms for what it's worth.
yeah,
I like the option of making the feedback anonymous if you need to. Because for every keyboard warrior out there, there's someone who doesn't want you to know that it was you giving that feedback. Just going back to our conversation of
yeah,
we've changed the way we write on these surveys
yeah,
because we don't want anyone to know it was us.
yeah, 100%. Like, and that's, yes, if my brain wants to spiral, I will not. I will not. We're gonna go because that's such a good little rabbit hole to go down. Spiral was the wrong word. Rabbit hole. Um, I think that the other thing, so that's on like the requesting. We were talking about like ways to channel feedback that's coming at you. Um, One of my other things is that I've got a little bit of a bugaboo about, or like a process that I use. Is how do I evaluate if this feedback is even worth my time? Right. So I think Brene Brown, when she came across to me, like she was quoting the Teddy Roosevelt quote, which I'll probably put a link on in our show notes when we post it, the Teddy Roosevelt quote. But it's the crux of it is that I don't take feedback from people in the cheap seats.
Yep.
You're up there, like Monday morning quarterbacking. You're not in the arena with me. It's the man in the arena quote. Like, I don't take your feedback. It's not for me. I mean, but like asking yourself, the questions I came up with were really around giving feedback, but you apply the same ones to see, did they go through these steps? So like the ones I have, like, is the person genuinely providing feedback to help me grow? Or am I, that's question number one. Are they really trying to, like, does this help this feedback? Would this feedback help me achieve my career aspirations? Or is it something that would help them achieve theirs? Is it they're looking at it from their perspective? Am I in a position to apply that feedback? This one's kind of like my favorite. Because I've received so many bits of feedback from really good people leaders, but there happen to be men.
Mm-hmm.
And these men give me
Same.
feedback, and the suggestions that they give me are tools and tips and things that have worked really well for them to get to where they are in their career. But what they don't realize is that feedback, I've applied it before in my life, and it backfires every single time. And it's just not something that I can apply. It's like, so that to me is one. I mean, we can dig into that one. And then yeah, I'd say that those are the ones, if you're receiving feedback, those are the ones that are like you look at it through those three, right? Because is it worth it? And I think that maybe there's a fourth one, like, is this something that I really need to take, even though I don't like it, because it's going to be something that chaotic happens if I don't take this feedback? Okay, fine, but yeah.
Yeah, what you said about the feedback given by men.
Yeah,
Like I'm sure it's great. It's great feedback. It's great advice for other
someone.
men, for other people who are in a similar situation demographic as you. However, Chad, if I went ahead and I did that, I would come off as bossy and rude and all of the
The
negative
B
brandings.
word, the C
Yes.
word.
all the words. And that's not helpful. With
No,
I know you gave me that feedback with the best of intentions. However, it's not going to help me.
it's not going to help me. And, having that crucial conversation, you chose Chad. So, like, having that crucial conversation with Chad can be really hard. So, whether or not I explain to Chad that there's a reason why I'm not applying his feedback, that's a judgment for you to make. Like sometimes I frankly don't have the energy to explain to Chad, right? Like I don't. I'm like, I hear him, he'll keep on saying to me, hey, I told you, I'm like, I know. Like sometimes I will explain it to him and sometimes I won't. And sometimes there's a question of like whether you have the power, like the situational contextual power to have that conversation with somebody who might have societal or like literal power over you within that workplace. So
Yeah. And I think that echoes our transparency about the feedback that
yeah.
you're getting. And how that's helpful. I was just like, this is all the feedback I've been getting. Here is all these other things that I can implement, that I can action, that I
Mm-hmm.
have the time to, the capacity to, whatever it is. And like, here it is. These are the reasons why I'm not implementing your specific feedback.
100%. And I think that the other thing, and I haven't found the perfect one too. I think that this asking for permission to give feedback, I think is an important thing to do, right? Like I think that, but doing it in a way that's skillful and ask it when you ask the question, hey Amanda, are you open to some feedback or like are you in the headspace for feedback or like, or is this something you want to navigate on your own? It would probably be a route that I would go. Like, and if Amanda says no, I can't do it, I'm like, okay, cool. Not now or not ever, not ever. Okay, great. I don't need to, it's not, unless I'm her people manager and I literally need to do this for some sort of reason, or, there's something that's going to be irreparable harm. I can take that feedback, write it down in a notebook, write it in an email and send it to myself, not to her, send it to myself if I need to get it out of my system. But it's not, Amanda doesn't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything about feedback unless it's literally part of the job relationship and it's something that I really need to do.
Right. Yeah. I think that opting in to feedback, to both giving and receiving
Both.
feedback, both.
Yes, both. And there will be scenarios again where you have to just take it on the chin and be like, okay, I'm not in the headspace right now. Can we do this in an hour? I just want to take a deep breath. I can see where this is going and I just want to be prepared for it. And I want to have the mindset where I can actually receive it. Like that's a nice way to deflect and still know that you need to receive, but gosh, this world and its feedback. I don't owe anyone anything in general, as far as feedback goes. Remind yourselves of that, folks. So I think that I'm a people pleaser. I like to make people like really happy. I like to like Amanda was saying, you like to take the time to give the feedback and, help people improve. But, you got to protect yourself first. Like protect yourself first. And sometimes that's putting on a set of headphones, even if no music is playing.
Right. Yeah. And, these aren't hard and fast rules. The world
No,
isn't black and white, right? Like, there are going to be exceptions. There are going to be scenarios where, like, you have to give feedback. Like, I don't have time to ask you if you're ready for feedback. Like, I need to give you this feedback right
right
now.
now. Right now. Because I mean, you're leading a team and you got a software release in 2 hours, and you're like, I need you to get your stuff together, figure this out. These are the three things. I see where you want to go. We will talk about that in 4 hours because in 3 hours, we're going to do this. And then I will talk to you about that in 4 hours. I promise you, but get this done first. Like,
Right.
here's the feedback, get it done. And then we'll talk about it. There's ways around it, so
Totally.
love it. So any do you have any feedback on our feedback episode, Amanda?
I don't have feedback on our feedback episode, but something that did come to mind,
Yeah.
just as an afterthought of our Google Forms,
Yeah.
and ways to collect feedback,
Yeah.
is the idea of a retrospective.
Ooh, I love a good retro. I've been meaning to add that to our potential episodes list. I think a good
Yeah.
retro. For those who don't know, like
Yes.
what's a retrospective and what might be some of the other names that people might know it as? I might throw in some names in there, but tell us about a
Yeah, a
retrospective.
retrospective, or a retro for short, is a ceremony or a meeting that regularly occurs. This is common in the software development,
Mm-hmm.
where you work in iterations or, sprints.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a set of regular sprint ceremonies or meetings, check-ins, so to speak. And a retrospective is at the end of an iteration where the team gets together and talks about what went well the last iteration, whether that's 2 weeks. It's typically 2 weeks, I think. What went well in the last 2 weeks? What could have been better in the last 2 weeks? with the intention of continuous improvement and just making things better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
For
hearing
everyone.
what the team
Yeah.
has to say, both positive and negative
Yes.
feedback, and then making that commitment to doing things better. Like for example, a common one is we get interrupted too many times by people, by leadership, by whomever. Someone higher up keeps on messaging me with like new tasks to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I couldn't get things done in the last 2 weeks. And so you would hear that the people would talk about it and say, "Me too, me too." Um, and oftentimes it would be me or their people manager saying, okay, going forward, I will be the buffer. I'll talk to leadership. I'll ensure that
Mm-hmm.
all new requests go through proper channels so that you're not interrupted from doing what you said that you were going to do in the last 2 weeks. And these are just ways to just get a real time pulse check on how the team is doing and like get their ideas for how to make things better.
I'm glad that you said that. I love a good retrospective, sunset review, after action meeting, whatever. There's lots of different names for it. I love them because they also if you do have Amanda used the word ceremony in this context is like it happens on a regular basis, right? Like it's something, it's an important, I'll use the word ritual. They sound like religious things, they're not, but like
I know.
these rituals that you do, and because you do them consistently, and because it is a practice unto itself, going through this conversation, which can be a challenging one or it can be a good one, depends on the cycle, right? On that really scheduled cadence, what happens is that everyone knows there'll be a place where they can say what they need to say, right? And then, if somebody feels the need to express themselves between these rituals, I can say, hey, I love it. Write it down and bring it to the sunset review, bring it to the retrospective. Like, this is really important. And I think that it's important for us to dialogue about it. So, like, that's a great way to channel that energy because people want to express themselves. Like, heck, I like expressing myself. I have a
We
podcast.
like to express ourselves.
Podcast wouldn't exist if we didn't like to express ourselves. But um, I love that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and it's one setting the expectation that we are going to collect your feedback,
Yes.
that you should have feedback to share,
Yes.
that you like express yourself, right?
Yes.
That there is a place, there is a forum to do it. And we're going to do something about it, right? We're going to try to do something about it. We're going to acknowledge that you have this feedback, and then we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to figure out how to action that feedback, or if that feedback needs to be actioned. Maybe it's just a venting session, like whatever.
Sometimes that's necessary. And so, yeah, I think we'll have a full episode on these because I mean, there's different approaches. Like, we'll
Yeah.
probably have more than one. There's lots of fun ways to do these. I enjoy a good sunset. Any other thoughts? Any other feedback on our feedback?
No feedback on our feedback.
So let me list out some things. We're going to make sure we put them in the show notes so that they're available to y'all. But what we have is a glossary of terminology. We threw out a lot of jargon that may or may not be familiar to folks. We are committed to creating a glossary. It's a spreadsheet with terms and terminology. So if you're wondering, like, what do they mean by that? Like, we get most words. We may not get every single one of them, but we get most words, and we throw in a definition there. We have listed by episodes, so that'll be there. That's at the messymiddlematters.com/glossary. Same thing for feedback, the messymiddlematters.com/feedback. I'll add a link to my blog post around those questions. It's framed as like making sure that when you're giving feedback, it's useful. But again, you can reinterpret it and look at it from the other side with just a little bit of time. We'll put that in there. And I'll throw in a link to Brené's the quote that Brené talks about, the Teddy Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena. I embody that quote some days. I'm like, no, you're in the cheap seats. You're in the cheap seats. I respect you for giving feedback, but I will not internalize it. Good for you, not for me, as Amy Poehler says. As Amy Poehler says. Anyway, um, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Amanda, as always, for being my partner in crime on this. And we'll see you next time when we talk about another topic from the messy middle. Bye.
Bye.